that didn't work out. Okay folks, today we're going to build the mini tricopter. It's not tiny mini, but it's pretty small. I mean, you could play it in your house a little bit. The weight is very light, and as always with Simplecopters, we overpower it. Just to give you an idea, here's a full-size standard 2.0 tricopter. And out, and I hope it's in focus, but so to give you an idea of the physical, is that right? Yeah. So it's definitely about half the size or smaller, and I went ahead and chose to build it mainly because I'm lazy and I don't want to cut different types of wood, but I went ahead and built it with the 1/2-inch arms and basically the same physical strength of the big tricopter. What this is going to give you is a very hard to break and hard to kill copter. Let me zoom back in a little bit here. Okay, so this should be extremely durable. So my target audience is going to be, believe it or not, new people who are just starting out, who have good eyesight, because if you go 100 feet away, you ain't gonna have a clue which way this thing's going. But you know, front yard flyers, learning how to fly, this ought to take a beating even much better than most of my other copters, just going by physics of size and you know, difficulty of destroying. So I'm going for new people learning how to fly, and I'm looking for my other Simplecopter people, or people who out there have been flying for a while. They just want to have something small and fun, just kind of play around in the yard. When I built the original one, when I built this one right here, forgive me, my son flew it yesterday and broke the prop, but when I built that, I didn't think I thought it was going to be okay, and I was just blown away with how good it really was. A friend of mine came over, has been flying tricopters for a while, and he flew it and just fell in love with it. So I thought, well, maybe I got something going here, because I really just built it for myself. I wasn't going to sell it, but I was just blown away with how good it flies. I mean, it's very tight, very crisp. Doesn't have, you know, it's just like it's on rails. It's just unbelievably good flyer. Disadvantages of this, I would not recommend putting a GoPro with a case on the front of it. I think it would pick it up and carry it, but I don't think it'd be pretty. But if you put a GoPro, like a GoPro 3 naked, or the good old Mobius camera, which I happen to love a lot, I think it'd be absolutely fine. I think you could fly it with a FPV camera in the front, transmitter in the back. Yeah, it's about 3 ounces. That's not going to affect this at all. For fun stunt flying, I've been flying it with a 1300 milliamp battery from buddyrc, the Glacier. And then for long distance flying, or if I'm going to go take it, as I call it, go for a walk around the neighborhood, exercise my fat butt, I'll put the 2200 compact zippy on it, because it's about an ounce heavier and it doesn't affect us at all. So I get about a 10, 11 minute, 12 minute flight if I'm taking it easy, which I usually don't. And then with the 1300, I'm getting probably about a 6-minute spirited flight and a 7.5, maybe 8 minute of just kind of cruising around, being insane. So it's got a lot of possibility. We're going to hit the battery in the bottom, which is a little, you know, different for me, but you know, with the lighter weight batteries and some good Velcro, they ain't going nowhere. If it does, it's because he slammed it in the ground real hard. I know that. So I'm going to go over some things you're going to need to build this. Number one, let's start with motors. Sunnysky 2300 kV motors. These are phenomenally strong motors. They you combine that with a 645 prop, which I sell these, and you can find them in China, and I think Helia has them also. But these props and this motor is a very powerful setup. I mean, it really is strong. When these motors came out, they were actually supposed to have little 5.3 props, which I just happen to have one right here. And I'm telling you, the comparison between power between these two are just night and day. So you don't need that. So we're going to go with the 645 props. These motors, 2300 kV, 2204 motors from buddyrc. For this build, we're going to be using the buddyrc's KK 2.1 board. This comes preloaded with software or firmware, whatever you want to call it, that you can do aerobatics with. Unfortunately, hobbyking has never gotten past the point of packaging their KK2 boards with software that you can actually flip. If you try to flip it, it goes freaking nuts. So this one also has the hard case, plastic, and let that open over here. So it's got protection, which is going to be really good for this thing, because this one doesn't have an inset place for the board like all my other copters have. So this one's got a plastic case, and pretty good stuff. It's got the 1.12 software from buddyrc. You can upgrade it to 1.17. Slight difference, not, you know, crazy. Something we're going to be playing with today. I've never used them before. buddyrc sent me a set of these to try out. He claims that these are really, really, really awesome. I can't break them. He said, I just dare you to try to break them. So they look great. The speaking controls I've been using before from readytoflyquads, which is also a good seller. Unfortunately, he's been taking about 2 weeks to ship anything out. So, you know, either way, these are a little bit more money, but they have a heat sink on them. They should take a lot of abuse. And we're going to try them out. They have the SimonK firmware built into them. They were supposed to be set up for this motor. If you go out and buy a speed controller that says SimonK, 12 amp speed controller, that's not specifically flashed for this motor, the 2204 2300 kV sunnysky motor, you can have issues. I had one recently that somebody sent me a copter back that couldn't get it to fly right. It had another brand that I'd never used before. We eventually got it straightened out, but I really feel like it was a speed controller issue, not being set for those motors. So we're going to try these out. These are also available at buddyrc, and I may start carrying them on my side too, just for convenience purposes. So we got motors, board, and you need a... Sorry, it's a late edition, but servos, I had an issue with the HS82 servo working on this mini copter. I had some tail wagging issues I couldn't get rid of no matter what I did. So I tried this new power servo, and it's a new power from buddyrc XLD-17HM Metal Gear Digital Servo. Worked really nice, real smooth, no problems. The other one that seems to be working fine is this towerpro MG90S. A little cheaper. These are around $5 to $7. These are around $7.50 from Buddy. These you can find on eBay. The MG90S you can find on eBay, hobbyking, even Hobby Parts has them. And but unfortunately, in this video, you're going to see the HS82 being used when I'm building it, but ignore it. And I'm also going to go over the settings on these two different, because they take two different settings on the KK2 board for your mixer editor. So I'll go over that just later on the video. Sorry, learning. Receiver is going to be close in the yard. I'm not worried about long distance with this particular one, so I'm going to use a little hobbyking orange $6 receiver. Alright, some of the things you're going to need 5 wires to go from the they're male to male wires to go from the receiver to the KK2 board's left hand side. These will actually plug in here on this side over here. I'm going to say this over and over again. Make sure you always have the white wire or the light colored wire to the inside, no matter if you're plugging the speed controllers in. If this was a speed controller, we plug it in with the white to the center, not to the outside. That's backwards. So we'll go with that later, but you can get these on my website, and or you can buy them at, you know, wherever you want to find them. We need lots of zip ties. So these are the 4-inch, these are the 4-inch 18-pound zip ties. You can get them at Walmart. I may eventually start selling them on my side. I'm just too lazy to get them. But so 4-inch, and you need a couple of 8-inch 18-pound zip ties. Now you can go use some Mambo zip ties, but they just don't seem to cinch down the motor quite as good as these smaller ones do. They really tighten down the motor very well. And these are the longer ones used for the servo in the rear, because it's taller and needs a little bit longer zip tie. In a pinch, let's say you can't find it or you forgot to buy it, you can always take 2 of these zip ties and hook them together like so, and then make you an 8-inch zip tie to go around the servo. I mean, I've done that in a pinch on the field. So Alright, heat shrink. For these little tiny motors, the motor wires are really small. If you can get the 3mm heat shrink, I got that on my site, but if you can find it elsewhere, that's fine. 3mm, I'm hoping will go around these tiny little, I know they will, the little 2mm, I'll talk about this too, 2mm quick connects for your motors and speed controllers to hook together. I didn't use that on the quadcopter, the little mini quadcopter I built, V-tail, but I think I'm going to like this. I think it's just more convenient and just a little bit more simple. It takes a little bit longer to initial install, but if you crash and you break the motor off, you know, you don't have to worry about tearing out the wires. So those are 2mm, hell they call it, bullets, whatever. Again, I'm actually going to put these on the website in the near future because they're kind of a pain to find. So we need KK2. These are called gyro mounts, and they go on the bottom of the board. In my case, I cut them in half and take each half. So you need 2 for the actual board. Very important that you get these. If you don't, you'll be sorry. Again, these are available on my site too. Most of this small stuff is. You need a little bit of the bigger heat shrink. This is some 5mm heat shrink. You need a little bit, or 6mm actually, to go from where I'm hoping, this is kind of a little bit of experimentation as a build, but the wiring is going to be much more simple than most of my copters. So hopefully that'll all work out like in my head it's going to work out, because I haven't done this yet. And so what else we got? These little pads, these are awesome. They're a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch little gray tab, and they and I put them on the bottom of the motors to I don't have a motor sitting around here, but you'll see it later on. I put them on the bottom of the motors, I put them on the bottom of the speed controllers, not speed controllers, bottom of the servo, and it just makes everything grip real nice. It's got a little bit of, you know, dampening. I'm not looking that, I don't think it's going to make a ton of difference, but it makes the zip ties cinch down and really pull the motor in tight, and kind of gives a little bit of a tension on those zip ties, and it's really important that you get them. Or something like it. You can use 2-face tape, 1/2 inch 2-face tape. You can get that at Home Depot. You can get these on my site. They're, I think, $2 or something like that. I think I make $1 on them. So I'm also going to use, to attach the speed controllers, I'm going to use an extra set of these vibration mounting pads. I find they're really good and sticky. And I usually use hot glue, but on a hot day outside, if it sits out in the sun, I finally see a speed controller kind of sneaking out the side of my copter because it just got so hot and just let go of it. So these never seem to let go, so I'm going to be cutting these and using these. I also did that in the mini V-tail, and so far they've been holding great. Alright, camera shut off. I don't know why, but it's kind of new for me. So I screwed up, and it's going to have a purple top instead of a yellow top. So it's just life. Unfortunately, my props aren't exactly a perfect match for the neon paint that I used on the arms, but we'll just have to get over that. So I used, what did I use? Hold on, let me grab it. Sorry. So I used Krylon fluorescent paint. Just make sure I'm still good here. And this stuff is awesome. It dries quick, and it smells really good in your garage for a while. And works on plastic, works on wood, and then I also used a little bit of clear coat, the Krylon clear coat on top of it to give it a little bit of a shine and make it smooth. I don't think this adds a whole lot of weight to this frame. It really doesn't feel much heavier, but I don't know, I haven't got a scale, but I think it's worthwhile to do it. So that's it. We're going to start building this sucker up. Alright? Alright, one more thing I forgot. Focus. It's in focus. Okay, one other thing I forgot is you need a soldering iron. And solder is not really that hard, but if you have a decent soldering iron, this one right here I paid about $90 for it, and it's got a blowing heat thing, which you'll see me use, and your tip. And it's really cool. It's got LED digital stuff. It's just awesome. Either way, you know, it's probably more than the first person who wants to actually build something like this needs to get. So hobbyking has this, which is a well, I don't know, 936 soldering iron. They're 15 bucks plus about 15 bucks for shipping. It's a 60 watt iron. You know, it's all you really need to get started with this stuff. And the other thing you want to do is go on eBay and go look for Harco tips. Harco, you see 10 tips, and you want to buy the aftermarket tips because the tip that comes with the Hobbyking one sucks. I mean, it's horrible. So you go on eBay and you look for Harco. I'll try to find the link to that, but they're like $8 for the tips, and so you bet about 38-40 bucks into a soldering iron that will last you, and it's got variable temperature, and it works really good. Or you can buy this, but you know, whatever. So let's get to building. All right, we're gonna do the boring stuff first, and what the hell was that? Oh, okay. The other thing is, if you're over 45 years old, you're gonna need some reading glasses. I'm sorry, it's part of life. So when you buy the motor, these things come with a mount plate that you could use for like bulletproof vests. It's a very strong mount plate. I've never bent one at all. Can't say that for the Hobbyking motors and the RC timer motors. I have crap loads of extra plates sitting over here that I bought just to replace all the ones I've bent. Never mind that one. Sorry. Let's get this back out of the way. So either way, since I've gone to the Hobbyking, I mean the sunnysky motors, I have not bent any of these plates. But either way, we have to attach these plates to the motor, and you'll notice on the bottom it'll be kind of concave on these inside. That's the side you want to put your screw into. So you take these little silver screws, and first you do, sorry, one more thing. Use a little bit of Loctite. Go get you some blue thread locker, and hey, I got a good use for this. I can use it to put Loctite glue on. So just put a teeny tiny drop of this stuff on there. I need a screwdriver too. Where's my screwdriver? Alright, that's kind of a obnoxiously long one, but okay. So just put a touch of that blue stuff on there. Sound like a southerner there, which I am. Okay, and you'll notice these bolts have a small side and a longer side, so kind of common sensey right there, and hopefully I'm actually in the picture here. And this is going really well so far. Yeah, oh, okay. So, pop one on there. Make sure you put a little bit of blue Loctite on it. Blue Loctite, you want the blue medium Loctite. You don't want the permanent crap, because in the case you ever do have to take one of these motors apart or off, then you want to have that option to be able to do that without having to use heat. If you ever do use the really, the permanent stuff, if you use a heat gun or some kind of device like that, you can actually remove it. But a lot of heat and a brushless motor is a bad idea. It's a bad combination, because bad things happen to the motors once they get super duper hot. So hopefully my arm's not in too much of this, but you kind of get the idea here. The other thing about the sunnysky motors is they come with a threaded bolt-on prop adapter that's built into the motor, so it's not going to come flying off like a Colet type, the old type of motors do. So either way, that's 3. Got one more to go, and you're going to do this for all 3 motors, obviously. And I'm not going to sit there and make you watch me do all 3 motors, so that's kind of stupid. So let me get this last one in here, torque it up a little bit. Nothing crazy, but tight enough. All right, that's done. So the other part is speed controllers. On a speed controller, you have the 2 power wires. Let me go make sure I'm actually got this in view. Yeah, it's a lot of focus, but let's go this way and hope that's right. Okay, so you got your red and your black wire. Most of them will have 2 wires coming off on one side. That's where you're going to hook into your power. You're going to make your little harness with. You got 3 wires coming out of the opposite side, and that's going to be the ones that go to your actual motor. So what I like to do is I like to put, in most places that actually sells motors that have connectors on them, some other motors you buy will actually have the connectors on them, but you want to put the female side onto, crap, these things are tiny. Alright, idiot now. So we're going to put the female side onto the actual leads here. Nice little cool tools to get, like these helping hands. I got it at Harbor Freight for like $3. And you just basically stick it in there. Make sure you're sticking in the side that's got a little tiny hole in the side. You can take, just to make sure you're not, I mean, we all done stupid things, but I mean, if you try to stick, you know, obviously that's not going to go in there. So this is the side that you want to solder to, the back side. So we're going to stick that in our little helping hands. We're going to grab our soldering iron, slaughter. We're going to take, not just touch it to the side with a good strong iron. You touch the side, you get the inside full of stuff. These particular speed controls are already pre-tinned, so stick it in the hole, let it go, just kind of hold it there a second until it, you know, sets up. Sorry about the noise, my air compressor is kicking on. So, okay, I'm going to turn the damn thing off. Hold on. Okay, now we got that turned off. So you just want to kind of hold that wire in place until it, you know, gets on there, get a little tug, make sure after it cools down, give it a little tug. Go to your next one. I'm not even going to go through all three of them. I'm just going to go through one. This is when you're going to use that little 3mm heat shrink. So you're going to want to cut it a little bit longer than the actual thing, plus about a ½ inch or so extra.
Incoming SMS from Renee Bruce Colet ordering a batch of white knights next week finally.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, and this is where this 89 or 75 or whatever dollar Yahusa, I think it's the same company that makes a hobbyking one. I'll be damned. The Yahua 862D Plus, in case you want one. Cool thing about it, it comes with a circuit board desoldering tool, which I use as a heat shrinking tool. So you put that on there, get to the very end, hit it. The cool thing is when you put this thing back in its cradle, it turns itself back off, so you don't have to worry about it. So you can do that to all three of your wires coming off the back side of the speed controller. Once you get that done, we're gonna, well, I'll just do it right now. So then the opposite side of that will be the come on, quit texting me. Sorry about that. Okay, now I turned it off. Okay, so the female side will go onto your motor. Same basic concept. Let's see, these are pre-tinned. Yeah, they're already pre-tinned, so you don't have to worry about putting any solder on here. Normally, if they weren't pre-tinned, you'd have to put a little bit of solder on there to get it to bed in really good. So we're going to take our soldering gun. Come on. There we go. Okay. Soldering gun. Slaughter. Put a little bit in there. There goes that southern twang again. Put that in. Let it sit there a second, set up. You'll get good at this to kind of get your timing down. And again with the heat shrink, this time you're going to leave. Where'd it go? Well, let's get another piece. This time you're just going to put heat shrink on the end part here. So you just need a shorter piece. And it's awfully big. That looks better. So it fell down. Alright, let's try it again. There we go. One of these days I'm going to clean out from under my workbench and I'll find so many things I'll just be like very happy. So this time we're going to use a lighter the old-fashioned way. Works too. And there. So now you've got a joint between the two to go from speed controller to motor. So you can do that in all three wires and all the motors and everything. So we're going to get that done and I'll be back with you in just a few moments. Still recording? Yep, good. Take 3. Done. So stick it in. Nice and easy. Yeah, it's hot. Alright, we got all the connectors on and we got everything out of focus, sorry, and done, ready to roll. So we're going to move on to our next step of the build process. Woo. Okay, so what I want you to do is take the arms and screw them on to the bottom plate, just so you can lay everything out. I was really hoping that I could put these speed controllers here and here and make a really nice install, but I'm lacking like freaking ½ inch of making it out to the outside. So we're going to do it a little different. We're going to run this one here, this one here-ish, so I can make it without adding any extensions. So these are going to go to slide angle in here this way, and the back one, there's no problem with it. It'll obviously make it to the back fine. So we are going to have a bit of a rat's nest of wires when we're all done, and hopefully we can tuck them all up underneath here. So I would suggest going ahead and attaching the motors first, and to do that we will basically, again, you're going to want your wires to kind of come towards the back here, so use appropriate lugs. You can just stick these suckers on the bottom of the motor and get your zip ties somewhere. And what I do is I like to take one and just make a circle with it. You're going to want to counter, you want to run one zip tie one way, one the other way. It pulls the motor down nice and straight. So real difficult. Oh, by the way, once you're done hooking up all the screws, you're going to have these little black hexagonal screws left over. Put them in a baggie in case you ever build a different copter and you have to attach some motors through a plate by screws. You know, if you ever decide to do that, which I highly recommend you don't, of course. Simplecopter's the way to go. But either way, so you're going to put these opposite ways. So the bottom comes out this way one side, bottom goes on the other side that way. So when you tighten it down with your trusty zip tie tool, if you buy one, you can buy the zip tie tool from Uline, like 16 bucks. It's the absolute best investment you'll make in my copters and just in life in general. This one's not working exactly perfect because it's probably not set right, but so unfortunately it left little tabs at the bottom, so I need to adjust the tension. I'm going to clip those off just so it'll lay on the table flat. So I'm going to suggest that you actually hook the motors up first and then put the two-face on the bottom of the speed controller to make it actually attach it permanently. That way you don't want it to overstretch the wires. You want to be able to fold this down when it's done. It's for transportation. It's going to be a real small package. And so let me put this other one on and we'll two-face down the speed controllers, and we can go into the fun part of wiring the harness. This tentatively will be easier. Oops. Alright, see? Not paying attention. Easily remedied. Really did a crappy job there, but that's okay. And I forgot to make my little wire first. Either way, it's an easy way of hooking a motor, and they will pop loose on a hard impact. And hopefully save the vital parts of your copter from getting broken. Oh, ow. And those. Guys, remember, this is a hobby. Once you can, hey, that won't work. Once you do this, complete this, and learn how to fly, you are a multi-rotor pilot, which is important, because going and buying a pre-built copter out of a box that comes back to you impresses your friends, but I don't know how much it'll impress you. Alright, so we're happy. Things will fold once we get it all zip tied in relatively good. Maybe not as tight as I'd like it to be, but that's just too bad. So I'm going to use the gyro pads to adhere these. Might be able to go with quarters, but we'll just do halves. Heck, money's no object here. If I can get the damn things to peel loose. These are some sticky suckers, by the way. Yes. Also, on these speed controls, the purple part on these particular ones are the heat sinks. So it's advisable to have those facing up and not down in the foam. So we're going to make sure this is can fold. It's alright, it's kind of stuck itself down there already, so stick it. The other one down. Rear one's not going to be a problem, it's got plenty of room, so not too concerned about it. Put that sucker in there. It's in there, but it can still kind of move, and I don't think vibrations do much to a speed controller, but you know, it's all good. Some long wires here, good God. I'm going to leave these little zip ties on it because I think they might actually come in, I'm not zip ties, but these little wire ties, I think they might come in handy as far as doing the board, and I can just re-zip tie them and make them look pretty. So I'm going to get that rear one on there, and where the heck it went? Where'd it go? Speed controller. Here, boy. Let's look on the ground. Found it. One of these days I'm going to clean out from under this bench. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this while we're here. This is fun. Everything works out like I hope it will. This really will be the absolute easiest build of all of them that I've got. I'm going to stick it out a little bit. I don't care if it sticks out a little bit. I just want to have a little room for the wire. Alright, the next fun part we're going to do is figure out the wiring harness. So, y'all don't see this, but I'm actually dancing right now a little bit here. So, I'm going to take all three wires. I'm going to go with the red ones first and figure out some place that they will come together nicely. In this case, I think that's going to be my point. Hopefully I'm doing this right, because once I cut this, it's cut. Alright, so I'm going to strip these back to about a 1/2 inch showing, and I'm going to cut this one long and use it as a wrap to wrap around the other wires. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm just looking one more time to make sure this is all going to work, because these speed controls are a little bit bigger than I'm used to. I think that'll be the ticket. So let me refocus the camera. I can get to it. Yeah. Get into this stupid chair. Yeah. Alright. I think I feel pretty comfortable with what we're going to do here. I think it's going to work fine. So I'm going to take and carefully cut a little bit of this off here. It's usually where I trash my thumb. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to group these wires together, such as this. I'm going to take this wire, cut it much longer, and strip it back to be a wrap around them. I'm going to take and wrap around the other wires. So I know a lot of people are uncomfortable about cutting their speed controller wires, but you know, get over it. It's not that much money. You can always solder a wire back onto it to lengthen it back up. This may be a little bit overdoing it. Let my wire go. Oh yeah. These are some seriously fat wires. Yeah, it's probably a little bit longer than it needs to be, but my fingers are sweaty. It's hot down here in Georgia, folks. Alright, so we got a long one. Strip about a half, maybe a little more than 1/2 inch off these. Probably not necessary, but let's just do it anyway. So my thoughts are, trim that wire a bit. So I'm going to take, where's my long wire? Okay. In fact, I'm going to make this a little bit longer in this wire. I'm going to take this wire, this wire, this wire, all red. I'm going to put this wire in between them. If everything goes well, I'm going to wrap this one around everything. It will work with me. This would be a little easier if I wasn't trying to keep it all filmed and in place so you can see what's going on, but that's my curse. This is where we're going to use that 6mm heat shrink. So we're going to make this pretty little bundle of wire, nice and easy. Yeah, that's definitely in there. This is when a really good soldering iron comes in handy, because if you're dealing with like a Home Depot 30-watt iron, this might take a little time. But we're going to add a little bit of solder to this. This is going to not be the prettiest thing in the world, but you're going to get your iron set on there really good, and with a good hot iron you can just start laying solder into the joint. You want it to kind of soak in. So this is a 60-watt iron. I got it cranked up to full bore. So that's the top side. I'm going to flip it. Or if you're really talented, you just take it on faith and just kind of drop it in the side there. This ain't going to go nowhere. Alright, so you got it all soaked in there real good, all the way around it. It's going to be hotter than piss right now, so you got to let it kind of cool down a little. Okay, we got the all the wires soldered together, and last thing you want to do, and a lot of people don't agree with the way I do this, but I don't care, is we need a little, it's called a BEC connector, and this actually attaches to the top of your KK2 board. If you'll see on top of this right here is your, never mind, it's your beeper. Alright, this side over here is your, it's a tap that tells the board the voltage of the pack. You don't have to have it in order to fly, but it's a nice convenience because it takes the buzzer for the beeper for the actual board and turns it into a low voltage alarm. So in order to do this, you'll need to buy a BEC connector, again available on my site, or you can purchase it elsewhere. So what I do is I pre-tin up the wires. I think that's still in the video. Come on. Now, I kind of forgot to do this and I had to go back, so the video looks a little bit like it's been looks like it's been edited a little bit. Just trust me here, we're pre-tinning, meaning just putting a little solder on each one of these wires. And then on the back side here, I'll just touch the soldering iron because it's got a ton of solder on it already. And you're not going to unwind these wires just by doing this, but you'll basically just kind of touch it and get it to adhere to the actual blob of solder that's already on there. Oops. It's hard to do trying to keep out of the camera's eye. That's a really bad solder, but I think it'd be plenty solid. Oh, I was wrong. Got to leave it long enough to get it to kind of melt into the other solder. And tight, not tight. Alright, see? So I've got to test these things. In this case, a little more solder would probably be a good idea, but I'm just going to leave it on a little bit longer. Keep telling yourself it's a hobby. I'm really doing a horrible job here. Alright, put a little more solder on there. A nice little blob on the actual top of the blob. and those two will go together nicely then. Nice. You can also wind it into the actual thing. That might be the smart maneuver to do, but basically I forgot. So it's nice and tight. We're going to cut our 6mm heat shrink. Pray we didn't make the blob too big to get the heat shrink onto. And then we're going to number our speed controllers. On. And just barely goes over all that. So tighter you make that wiring thing, probably the better. This one's going to be, oh, it went on. There we go. Nice and nice. So we're going to heat that up. Just in case one of y'all buy one of these fancy pants soldering stations, I'm running this about 220 Celsius on the heat shrink and the high 400s on the actual solder. Alright, so we're ready to button this thing back up. So what I want you to do is I want you to follow your wires to your number 1 wire. We're gonna number these little doohickeys here, so when you close it up you'll be able to tell what is 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So the front left motor, which I'm right here, follow the speed controller, find the back of it, make sure you get this all right so everything will work perfect. So I've already made some little doohickeys, which I've lost. Crap sakes. Alright. Can't find my number 1. Damn it. 3. Let's make one. Alright, so the front left motor, take 2. So, front left motor, you want to follow to the speed controller. We're going to mark these cables here, so when it comes outside the side you won't know where they're actually hooked to. So, number 1, front left motor, you're going to put a little tab on it, or if you got a small Sharpie you can actually write in the actual connector, which would be really smart. But I don't have a small Sharpie, so I got a big fat one, so we're going to write number 1 on that. Number 2 is your right front motor. Follow those wires, follow that, blah blah blah, and drop the piece of tape. Son of a gun. You're gonna rip a piece of tape. Take number 2. That monstrous thing on there, right? 2. Number 3 is your rear motor. So you will follow that. Get your piece of tape, and I already got 3 written on it. It's the only one that survived. So now that we got that all done, you want to kind of neaten up the wires a little bit. You can use that little zip tie. You can use the thing that came with the speed controllers, but you want to leave enough sticking outside to make sure it can make it to the top. If you use a zip tie, you don't make it extraordinarily tight, then you can still pull a little bit more slack out. To do that, but you can also just not use the zip tie, just close the plates on top of it and just tuck the wires back in there. It's up to you. You know, I'm going to use the wire because I think the zip tie is going to be too fat. So buddyrc even supplied you a wire to tie your things with. So a couple twisties, just kind of keep everything in place. Smash it down. We're going to reattach. Oh, make sure you got your little BEC wire fired out the side too. So not the neatest job, but I think it will work. So they're going to remove these screws. Remember, these are going to be hex bolts, so you can really torque them down if you want to really tighten up the arms. I got a glob of solder on my board. Oh well, we'll just call it bling. So pull your screws out, put your top plate back on, and we'll go to the next step of attaching the actual board itself. So y'all know how to take the screws out, put the top on, screw it back down. You got the idea. Alright, we got everything buttoned inside. A little bit tight, but it worked. So we're going to attach the rear motor. I use little number 2 by 1/2 inch screws. And alright, so we have the, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but this is the servo to rear block connector. If you have some old 440 wire from an old airplane or something like that. You can build this yourself, you know, make a bend, or you can buy it from me. But this goes into the block like so. So when you screw these motors in, you'll kind of notice when you line this motor up that if you were to screw straight down on this particular motor doohickey right here, you would go right into that rod that's inside the block. So to avoid that, you're just going to drill at an angle. So go in here, position up the motor where you think it should be, and drill your hole in an angle. And I would attach that lug before you drill any more holes. If I could find my stupid screwdriver. Oh, right there in front of me. Okay, so we're going to put that screw in there, and you know, make sure you again avoid that rod hole doohickey opening. If you don't pre-drill these blocks, you might split it. They're made of pine, so it's always a good idea to pre-pilot hole drill, whatever you're supposed to call it. So just go in there tight enough till you start feeling it lift on the other side of the motor, and go do your opposite side. You can go straight down with these. I feel comfortable that nothing moves, so I'm going to go ahead and drill all my other holes out. You go to the bottom, you go to the bottom, no big deal. Oh, alright, I moved a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and screw those in real quick. And, or at least one more, and just make sure I don't screw up that last hole. Oh, sorry. Alright, one more. I'd never had a motor come off a rear block in flight, so. So we're going to get all 4 of our bolts in there, and I'll figure out what we're going to do next. Probably, let's put the board on. You don't want to sit there and watch me screwing screws. Alright, we're going to go ahead and attach the board. Now we got the motor on there. So we're going to cut the gyro pads in half, hook them on there. I guess I should have already taken these off, but either way. Don't bite your nails because it makes this much more difficult. Alright, so these are the buttons at the bottom, right, left. You want to put it approximately 1/2 inch above that back screw and in between the 2 front screws. Try to make it as straight as possible. And you're done. So we numbered those little speed controllers, so we're going to hopefully none of them have fallen off. So we're going to take number 1, it's going to the very top, light colored wire to the inside, dark colored wire to the outside. Let me put my glasses on to make sure I hit all these things right. Number 3, number 2 goes in the second slot. Number 3 goes in the, guessed it right, the third slot. Woo! Alright, we're also going to take the little wire from, a little tight. I'll have to pull a little bit of, alright, well, might have done too good a job of putting this zip tie on there. Alright, number 3 goes to number 3. Number 4 is going to be for your servo. We'll run that in a few minutes. So, as usual, I didn't make my connector long enough to go on that side, so I'm going to have to fish it through and go through the other side, which might mean me taking off the plates again. Nah, I got enough room, I think I can get it through there. But that was kind of boneheaded, but that's got to go in here. Won't fit, so I screwed up, but I'll get that remedied and we'll get to the servo next. Alright, we got that little thing straightened out. So we're going to do the servo now. If you have a servo driver or a servo tester, you know, it's a help because you can take and, where's mine at? Here it is. Take and hook up this little device and center your servo. We're going to just figure you don't have one, so we're not going to worry about it. So what you're going to do on most of my builds I tell you to take both the lugs off both sides, but on this one I'm just going to want you to take the lug off the side that actually goes, and this one's going to go underneath this build because the motor's too high and if the prop would hit it, it just won't work. So we have to put this one underneath. So we're going to take off the lug, the farthest away from the horn lug. We're going to actually sand that off, cut that off, do whatever you want to get rid of that lug. We're going to leave the other one on because it's going to act as kind of a little bit of a skid plate. So if you go onto concrete and stuff like that and you touch down, you won't be scrapping that wire up. You'll be dicking up that. So you know, we don't care. So I'm going to go do that and I'll be right back. Alright, we got it off. I just used a little belt sander to take it off. You can do, you can snip it off and then take a flat sander or still your wife's nail filer and smooth it out nice and flat. We're going to use our little sticky things here and put a pair of them on the bottom. They stick out slightly, but it's no big deal. So we're going to do that. Peel. This is where we're going to use your 8-inch long zip ties that are on this table somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and do the pre-doohickey. Stick that on. And, you know, honestly, you really should put your horn on and position this, but we're just going to, you're going to get the ideas. This might have to be bent slightly, whatever you need to do to get to line up. But you can kind of hold it against the side of the horn and see where it's going to need to be. And then you just actually take and apply it. Put a little bit of pressure on it, that should hold it. Put one zip tie in the back. And one in the front. And again, you want to alter which way the zip ties go on. You don't want them, both lugs to be on the same side. Do this on the motors, you do it on all that stuff, and just puts even pressure when you put the zip tie gun on it, so it makes it nice and flat. This one might be a little bit of a challenge for the zip tie gun on the other side, but we'll see what happens. So I just kind of tighten it up, and then I go for the gusto, and so it's on there, nice and solid, lines up good with the horn. And we're going to use a bigger horn on here. So one other thing I want to mention about high-tech servos is the screw that you actually attach this with is the oddest. It's a 2.5 millimeter screw, and it's virtually impossible to find. Never found one on the internet. I actually had to go to and buy a whole bunch of them from high-tech because I kept losing them. They're under my desk somewhere. So be very, very, I really lost it. Here we go. A little washer. You know, don't do this over the edge or on carpet, you know, if you have shag carpet or something like that in your house. Do it somewhere when you screw up and drop it, it'll drop somewhere you can find it. Now I'm going to carefully reattach this back in so it won't get lost. I can't tell you how many times I've lost one of these stupid screws. I try not to rotate this because high-tech, I mean, the factory setting is probably centered pretty well. What we're going to do is once we get the copter built and we power up the board, that servo is going to pretty much center, and at that point I'll depower it and hook the horn on, and then we'll go over a little process of checking direction because if I'm not mistaken, you'll have to do something to the board to accommodate the servo being below, which I believe we'll have to do, and I'll show you how to do all that. I'm going to show you how to test it without flying it to see if everything is correct. So that's done. I got to hook the motors up. I guess it's time to bind the receiver. Again, this is an easy build. The only disadvantage is that such a small copter, you have kind of long wires to kind of deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and get a receiver out. Alright, here's where we're going to use our little 5 male-to-male wires. And one thing that I forgot to mention, but on the back of this board there's a listing of which one of these wires goes to what. I've got it memorized, so I keep forgetting to do it. But we're going to go over it one by one. Something to talk about on a receiver. To figure out which side the white side goes, that is called your signal wire. It'll be your white wire, or in the case of this, the light orange wire. If you have these that are made like that. Sorry I don't have them matching, but sorry. So on the side of your receiver, you'll see a thing that says S on one side or the other. The S is at the very top, so that's your signal wire. That's where your white wire goes. Alright, the first on the left hand top is your aileron. See, I knew that from memory, not looking at another board sitting up on my desk. So white wire to the inside, that goes to aileron. So you go to your receiver, you look on it, and mine says battery throttle AILE, A-I-L-E, aileron. So white wire on this one to the top. So you go 1, 2, 3, plug that into the aileron. I hope this receiver works. It's an old receiver. This one will fit in here at a 1/2 inch. The new orange receivers will not fit in there. They're fatter. So you can just pop this case off and just take it out. It's going to be inside of here, so it's going to be protected. In this particular case, I'm going to, actually it's tacky. I'm taking it off. Orange just does not go. And here at Simplecopter, we want to make sure everything is color coordinated and pretty, because that's all we care about. So I'm going to knock this receiver casing off, and we'll go to the next. Of course, make sure you keep the top so you can figure out what is what and where the signal wire goes. Alright, so nobody's perfect. So the next one is elevator. Next one down is elevator. So white wire to the inside, cheat and look at your little top, and the next one over is elevator. So we're going to put that in there nice and tight. Alright. Third one down is throttle. See, I can remember this stuff now. It's the first two that kind of get me confused. Throttle. We'll look over here, and throttle is the second set of pins. So, throttle. Fourth is rudder. And rudder. So that goes on the next set of pins over. And make sure you get these on right, because I've slipped up and dropped it down a pin. It wasn't a good ending for me. So I have been trying to find a place to source these wires in a thinner, because they don't need to be so damn thick. Alright, fifth one is gear. And you look over here, and the next one next to the rudder is gear. So we plug that in. Boys and girls, we're getting close here. Now, at this point in time, I'd like to be able to power this copter. And able to do that, I need to put a connector on the end of this wire. Can you see that? Make sure. Yeah. Okay. So we need to put a connector on the end of this wire. I use the T connector. It's Dean's copy, and there's a bunch of different ones. Hobbyking batteries come with this type of connector. They work fine, but I started with Dean, so everything I've got is Dean, so I'm sticking with Dean. So if you had to remove this to put a Dean's on there, you could, or you can buy the female side, whichever the female side of this would be, and attach it here and keep your factory hobbyking set up, or you can go with the T connector. I think buddyrc offers batteries that have this connector also on it, and you can also buy your connectors from them too. So we're going to solder on the connector, and I'm going to kind of keep it short because I've been making them kind of long, and I got too much damn wire. So I'm going to cut it about here and hook my connectors up. So let me get it prepped up. You'll do this. You'll just cut a little bit of the silicone wire off this. You only need about a 1/4 inch showing, and we'll get a little helping hands, which this is where the helping hands come in very handy. And now I'll just keep running the camera. What the hell? Doesn't take that long. We're just going to slice a little bit off. Very important. This is where it'd be kind of nice to have some 5mm heat shrink for this. So I'm going to use it because I got it. But you could do it with 6mm, just a little bit loose in the wire. So you cut your heat shrink, put those on first. and take and twist your wires up. Actually, even better to twist them first and then stick the heat shrink on, but either way, it doesn't matter. And you want to pre-tin them. I think it's kind of running dry. So just going to touch to the side. Oops. And we're going to get them nice and coated with solder. Slaughter. I know this is not a very close-up, but I think by now you should hopefully know a little bit about soldering. Alright, on the back of this T-connector it has a plus and a negative. And I've been doing this for years, but I still have to look because I keep forgetting. So plus is the sideways one. So I'm going to put a little solder on. A little solder on here. That's the nice thing about having a good hot gun, is just you don't have to be on there very long. Place it on top. Just melt it right in there. And we're going to turn it sideways. Put a little solder on there. And guys, let me just tell you right now, my soldering technique is it's what works for me. I know a lot of people like to use flux, and but I use solder that has stuff already in it, and I've just never had an issue with it. But if you feel more comfortable using the flux, by all means, go ahead and do it. You know, whatever way works for you is the right way. So that's done. I'm going to heat that up. I'm going to turn the camera off because this thing makes a bunch of noise. We'll just use the damn lighter. No, I got a fan on. Let's use that. Okay, we're going to do the binding process, and this is also, I call it the smoke test. Once you plug this in and something smokes, you'll know you've screwed up. You know what? I don't have my servo hooked up yet. Let's hook that up. Let's go ahead and... Thank God I got a long enough wire to make it. There's no need to buy a servo extension for this copter. Okay, so I'm going to plug in. Oh, scratch that. Let's do it all at once. So you got a bind plug. This is a little plug that you have to put in your receiver to bind it to your copter. And let's back up a little bit more. When you set up your radio, you're going to set it up new model. Make sure you don't pick helicopter. You want to pick acro or airplane for your model setup. In this particular case, got a real pretty picture of an airplane, but you want to pick airplane, not acro. I mean, not helicopter, because these are just designed to work on the airplane settings. So on a JR or a Spectrum radio, on this particular case, you'll go to servo setup. If you have a DX6, it has like a name called reverse. Look for servo reversing in the manual. You'll find that, and you'll go to the setting for servo reverse, and on the throttle you'll leave it normal. On the aileron you will reverse it. On the elevator you will reverse it, and on the rudder you'll leave it normal, and the gear you'll leave it normal. So if you do those things right off the bat, and I've had more people email me, how do you do that? I'm like, YouTube, Google, the owner's manual. I don't remember how to do it on the DX6. It's a little bit more of a pain in the butt than this, but it's very doable. Again, throttle normal, aileron reversed, elevator reverse, and rudder normal. This is on a Spectrum radio. If you're doing it with Futaba or doing it with one of the hobbyking radios, I don't know what to do. I've never used them, and I'm not sure how to do it, but I will show you kind of a way to test your copter at the very end to make sure you're not backwards. So, alright, once we got that all done, we'll back out of that, and we are ready to bind. So, if you took off your thing, you'll have to pick it back up, match it back up. You'll see one that says battery bind or something like that. So you'll take your little wire, you'll plug it into the bind port, and so now we're going to power up the radio. Now turn your radio back off to bind. So we're going to smoke test / bind. So no smoke, no smoke. Oh crap, it's a brand new connector and they're real hard to get in sometimes. Okay. So you'll see this thing's blinking like a son of a gun. That means it's in bind mode. On a DX9 you hold the top button, on the DX6 you pull a lever or something like that. Flip on the radio, hold the button in,
Warning, throttle high.
And ignore that. So it's binding. It's talking to me. Bind complete. Light goes solid. Very important, boys and girls. And I can't tell you how many times I've done this. Remove the bind plug now before you do anything else, because if you forget, you'll have to rebind it all over again. So we've got it bound. I'm going to go ahead and set up the servo now, since it should be pretty much straightened out, I think. Let's just pretend like it is. You may have to go in here and program the tricopter first to get the servo to center up, but we're just going to assume that even as a multi-rotor, right now it thinks it's a quadcopter. We haven't set up the board yet, and so it should have everything centered. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug the radio battery. We'll test. If this works, great. If it doesn't, I'll show you how to go back and do it the other way. Turn off your radio. At this point, we can go ahead and hook up the servo. So we got to find the horn we want to use, which in this case I like this big honking long one. They have on these you have a small little X and you have a longer one. Don't cut off the other side, because you may break the servo. You can go ahead horn. You can go ahead and use the other side normally. One thing to be aware of is that the hole in this is kind of small, and if you have a drill bit handy, like I do, same one I use to pre-drill the thing, you can put it in your drill bit and do it, but I'm too lazy to hook that up, so I'm just going to do it the redneck way and just kind of force it on through there. You don't want to go too nuts and, you know, overly waller out this hole, but I don't think this is a 1/16 of an inch drill bit, but it may be just one size above it. And maybe I should just go ahead and put in the drill, because this is not working. So, we got a second. Grab a drill. Drill bit in there. And while you're at it, drill the other side. But I use the second hole. Let's just go ahead and pre-drill the other side also. You can drill all of them if you want, but the second hole seems to be adequate for everything you want to do. So we drilled that. Carefully, don't lose your screw. Watch me lose it. Treat it like a precious newborn baby. So I'm going to put it at 90 degrees, or as close as you can get. Sometimes it'll just be off one way or the other, but we'll worry about that a little later. Go ahead and put your screw back in, even though you might be taking it back off if things don't go well. Alright, so take your motor down, bring the arm up. You want to put it kind of level. Right now I'm going to pretend like this is flat, 90 degrees. I'm going to put it level, and it looks like I need to extend it out a little bit, so just unscrew it a little bit and hold it back up there. That's close enough. It's not going to be the end of the world if it's slightly off one way or another. So that's in there. The other thing you want to do is make sure you put your collet back on here if you took it off for any odd reason. I don't know why. I took it off for painting. So, alright, just powered up the board, and I'm going to go through a couple things. When you first turn your board on, you're going to have things like error, no throttle input, or I could have sworn there was, let's replug that in. Okay, so when you first plug in your board, you're going to come up with things like ACC not calibrated, self-level, whatever that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to load the motor layout. So we're going to press the right button, the next button over, scroll down till you see load motor layout. Enter. We're going to go down to tricopter. Enter. Are you sure? Yes, I am. Shows you the number 1, number 2, number 3, and the rotations of the props. This is kind of a nice place you can go to show motor layout if you can't remember which way your props turn. There's a tiny little arrow showing that way, and that way. So we're going to go back. The next thing I normally do is ACC calibration. Now to do ACC calibration, you have to be on a flat surface. So I'm going to put this on as flat of a surface as I have. My table here. You can hit enter and enter again, and it'll do like a countdown, and then it'll do the calibration. I'm going to stick it back up and we'll go from there. Calibrating, everything's a-okay, continue. Calibration successful, continue. We're going back up, see if I get this back in the screen right. I can show you it up. Alright, if you decide to use the new Power Servo XLD-17HM, it is a digital servo. The settings, well, normally let's pretend like it's I didn't have this board already powered up. Let's go back up to back. So you hit the menu button, and then you're going to scroll down to mixer editor, enter. You're going to hit it second time, third time, fourth time. So it says channel 4 up there, and you're going to change this rudder setting to -100. It'll probably be +100 on your board when you get it. So press the enter button and you make the changes until it says -100. Done. Now, very importantly, you have to go down to, it says rates. Factory setting is going to be low on this board. When you're a brand new board, it'll say low. You want to go to it and then hit it until it says high. And that high means it's high, it's for digital servo. I don't know the technical terms because I don't know anything about technical stuff. So make sure that's on high, -100. This is for the new Power Servo. And that's it. Alright, these are the servo settings you're going to use for the towerpro 90S Metal Gear MG90S Metal Gear analog servo. This is not a digital servo. So the changes you'll make is you'll go down to mixer editor, enter channel 1, 2, 3, 4. On channel 4 you are going to set your rudder at -100. I believe stock is +100. So that's the only changes you'll make. To go down and do that, you hit this button until you get to there, hit the right button, and then if it was +100 you hit the left button until it got to -100, or whatever it takes to get it to -100. One of these two buttons, you'll figure it out. It's not too hard. And then done, and back, and back. So that is again for the Metal Gear 90S servo, MG90S servo towerpro servo, if you happen to use that particular servo. The thing I like to change are two things. We go to miscellaneous settings, and this thing called alarm 1/10 voltage. Go down to that, enter, and with the 3-cell battery you're going to put it at 100, which is 10 volts. So at 10 volts, when this battery gets down to 10 volts, it'll start beeping at you and let you know it's time to land. You've got about 45 seconds to a minute's worth of airtime left once you hit about 10 volts. Now if you have a crappy battery, then you might need to set it a little bit higher because you may not have that time. So we're done with that. We're going to hit back. We're going to go to miscellaneous settings again. Yeah, sorry, we should stay on miscellaneous settings. We're going to go down to servo filter, and I like to run that around 70. That just kind of gives your rear rudder a nice smooth thing. If you forget to do that, it's not the biggest deal in the world. So I'm going to back everything up, and it still says error, no throttle input. Oh, I don't have the radio on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and unplug, turn my radio on. I'm just going to give it a quick little test. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and back the camera up and put it over the top of the copter so we can see some more stuff's going on. Alright, we're back on. Board says safe level is off. Now to switch the safe level on this radio, it's a gear switch right here. You switch that on, and then the little light, screen says safe level is on. So turn it back off. Battery voltage is 11.9 volts. This battery's not fully charged up, sorry. Everything else looks great. So I'm going to arm it. One thing you'll notice is that my servo is cocked over to the right. So I really need to go in there and straighten it back out. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that real quick while I got you on here, and I'll just run my mouth while we're doing that. So my little self-level, or my thoughts that the servo was centered already, end up not being true. So we're just going to take it loose, trying to lose the screw again, then bring it back up to level, and screw that back in. So I get a lot of emails, people are talking about when they test this thing as it kind of sits right now, when they arm it, that the rear servo kind of hunts. And it's just the actual, my camera turn off? Nope, okay. So what it is once you arm it, now to arm, I don't have the beeper in just yet, but to arm it, you'll just move the stick over for a second, the light will come on, it'll say armed, and we should be able to give it gas and all of them spin. So as it's running, you can see this rudder is just kind of hunting around a little bit. Well, it's not hunting too bad. But to test to make sure your rudder's going right, you want to take the copter and move it. And if you'll notice, this rudder is moving this way. The motor is pointing this way. That's bad. That's wrong. This should counter all your movements. So right now, that mixer editor thing we set up, we're going to go back and put that back. Now, we still haven't done the throttle calibration yet, so that's still something we got to do. So now that we're back on that, I'm going to arm it, throttle it, and now this should move that way when I turn the copter. So it's moving opposite way to the way you're rotating it. So as the copter moves this way, it's going to try to bring it back to center again. So again, you can see this thing's kind of moving a little on its own. It's just kind of hunting around. Right now it doesn't know where it needs to be, so it's just kind of trying to figure it out. So let's do throttle calibration. And please pay attention. This is very important. Even though these things really are, they're throttling up pretty together. So to do throttle calibration, you unplug the battery. And you have to do this sequence within a second. It's a pain in the butt. So either way, you're going to take your throttle, make sure yeah, it's in there. So you can take your throttle to full throttle. Again, all this is always done with the props off. If you ever have to do your throttle calibration, do it with the props off, or you'll end up getting scars in your hands like I have mine, because I was lazy. So you got to plug up and then press the 1 and the 4 button, the first and the last button, together, all within a second. So we're going to try it, and you want to listen to the beeps. If you don't hear these beeps exactly right, it didn't work. So I'm going to plug, press, it's beeping. Alright, that means it worked. You have a single beep, you'll pull your throttle down and go beep, beep, beep. If you don't hear that, even if it says it worked, it didn't work. So we have throttle calibrated, we have ACC calibrated, which is your self level, in case you're wondering why you calibrate your ACC. So now I'm going to see what the rotation of my motors are. See if these plugs are plugged in right. Hold on one second. I should start smoking, that way I'll have a reason to cough. Okay, we got 3 motor wires going to the motors. If you have a motor that's rotating the wrong way, then all you have to do is unplug 2 of the wires and switch them and put them back in, and it'll rotate the opposite way. It doesn't matter which 2 wires, you can pick any of the 3. So I'm going to arm it. I'm going to spin this one. This one should be spinning clockwise. The left front motor should spin clockwise like a clock, the second hand of the clock. So it is spinning clockwise. The rear motor should spin clockwise also. It is not. It's spinning counterclockwise. So I'm going to unplug one, unplug another, stick it in this one, stick this one back in here, and test it again. Now it's spinning clockwise. The front right motor should spin counterclockwise. It is not, so 1 out of 3. That's pretty par for the course there for me. So my heat shrink came a little loose. These are some good connectors. So I'm gonna switch. And then test. Counterclockwise, so that's a good thing. Alright, all we got left to do before we I got to button up the wires, you know, zip tie them down, install the props. Now a little bit about props. These small props are These small props are relatively balanced when they come, but you always need to check the balance, make sure they're in good balance. You can buy a little prop balancer from me. These things are tiny, but they're really good. So you stick the prop on there, and right now I got a fan going in here, so you can't balance the props when you got air moving in the shop. But I'm going to give you just a real quick thing. You put the prop thing on there, and that one's pretty bad out actually. I don't even think the wind's doing that. So to fix that, let me turn the fan off. This is balance the prop. So to fix that, oops, I use CA glue, which is a ceocronite, some kind of fancy pants glue. It's a very quick drying glue, and the cool thing about this glue is when it dries, it doesn't change its weight. For the longest time I used nail polish, and so when you nail polish it and the nail polish dries, it dries lighter. Rather a pain in the butt. So you take it on the back side of the prop. This is actually a used prop, so it was probably bounced at one time. Put a little bit on there. That's pretty close. So I'm just put a little tiny teeny dot. And then this stuff's called kicker. You spray that on there and it literally dries in a second or two. And then you're done. And you go on the next prop. So balancing your props is really important. Really important. I have more people that have issues with the copter flying poorly, and usually it ends up being a bad prop, out of balance. So I'm going to balance my props. I'm going to install them. I'm going to tidy up my wires. I'm going to put a piece of Velcro on the bottom so I can hook my battery up to that. And I think we're good for a test flight. So we'll go from there. Alright, I use the Velcro Industrial on the copter to mount the battery. Alright, that's a 1300, actually 1000, but about the same size as the 1300 Glacier. And then if you want to fly for a longer time, you can take and run 2200, and I kind of run it sideways. That way if it does impact, it'll kind of hopefully hit up against it. This is not the greatest. You could probably run a little bit more Velcro out the side and do a little bit better job, but you could do a 2200 that way. 2200 is a little bit tight to fit in. It just doesn't fit very well in with the landing gears. This is not really hitting it very well, so I would probably run a little more Velcro on the sides if you do a lot of 22 running, and put it like that with the wires, of course, the correct way. So I'm kind of excited. I want to throw this thing up in the air, see what happens. So we're gonna do something that's stupid. You don't. Oh, by the way, you can arm these. You can actually battery these up upside down. It's not a. I thought that would be a bad thing and it wouldn't work, but it's not the case. So I'm gonna move some of this crap out of the way, and I'm gonna put it on the table and kind of show you how to test your copter to make sure all the controls are working the right way. Do not ever do this what I'm doing on the countertop, because that's really stupid. So we're gonna do it anyway. Alright, again, do not do this on your countertop. Don't do this in your shop. Do this in a wide open area. They have plenty of room in case something goes really bad wrong. I still don't have the beeper on there, but I want to see if I give it a little gas. I'm going to push forward on the stick. You can see the back motor's trying to pick up. It's actually yawing a little bit. So as I give it gas, you can see it's kind of yawing around a little bit to the left or right, whatever way your nose is. If you'll take your trim tabs, you're kind of doing a little bit of it's still going around. So now I got a little bit of lift in the back. I'm going to get a little bit of forward trim with the forward trim button. Alright, now I'm going to test right. Alright, that's lifting to the right. I'm going to the left of my stick. You can see it's going to the left, forward, and backwards. Alright, and then yaw. So you got a general idea that it's in somewhat, you know, all the controls are working as they should. Your first flight will be a trim flight. You'll pull it up in the air, and you'll try to trim with those trim tabs so it flies by itself normal. If you're an experienced pilot, you'll do this off of auto level. If you're not experienced, you're going to throw the auto level on, and then you're going to probably trim it that way. until you get, you know, pretty good. So I'm gonna go put it out in the yard and test it, and then we'll get a video of it flying. Alright guys, this is on stock stick scale settings, scale stick settings. I don't fly much on stock scale stick settings, so could do a loop. It's meant to be a really big one. Oh boy, that was a loop on stock scale stick settings. So while we're here, I'm going to do a demonstration of the power and the carrying capability of this particular copter. Obviously it flies nice and smooth. I'm putting a Glacier 2200, weighs about 190 grams. I'm going to power it with that, and then we're going to pretend like it's got FPV gear on here, which is going to really probably end badly, but oop, bad. So I'm just going to put this right here and pretend like this is an FPV camera. I got a big old storm coming, so this may end quickly. So now we're carrying a 2200 plus another 4 ounces of weight. And this is not something I've ever tried before. I've still got plenty of power. And so if you're wanting to fly FPV with a heavy load, you know, it could be done. I don't know how long it'll last with this much weight on here, but you're probably going to get 8 minutes or so, maybe 9 minutes. And normally I would probably put a compact zippy. It would take an ounce off of it. And oh, I'm not used to the slow scale stick. So normally you probably put a compact zippy, and your FPV gear probably about 2 ounces lighter, so you probably take about 3 ounces off this. So I'm also going to fly it with a compact zippy. I won't worry about that yet. So I'm going to, man, this rain's coming. So I'm going to run the scale stick up. I'm just going to leave this battery up, and stick scaling. So its factory is 30. I'm going to go 120. And again, this is something you build up to, but with this storm coming, we just ain't got time to mess around with this. So I'm going to go 120, which won't be quite as high as I normally run it, but definitely want to get, oh god, the yaw is at 45, and I usually run yaw around 100. Alright, this ought to liven things up a lot, and this rain is coming, so yeah, still not as fast as I normally run it, but I need more. Damn, you hear that? I'm punching up the gains a little bit. It's good. Needs a little bit. This is with a 2200 on it, so normally if I was doing aerobatics and stuff, I would do oh yeah, that's my kind of yaw. We can see how it does in the wind, because it's really coming, folks. This thing is very, very fast. Again, this is with a heavy 2200 on it. See if I can do a spin around thing. This is an addicting copter. Let's go higher on the scale stick and put a smaller battery on it. See if we can beat the storm out.
Alright. And that's still pretty quick. Really quick. Now, alright, I got it now. I think I got a little too much gain on my rudder too. Ow! Okay. Take my gains down my rudder a little bit. Elevator rudder. About 50 on that. Was at 65. And mainly, I think it's because the scale stick's so high because it wasn't doing it before. That's pretty good. I can do that. That was kind of quick. So I got to do a little bit more. That's really quick for me. Oh. Oh, that scared me. I love the yaw rotations. It's phenomenal. It's just, everything's real snappy and quick on this. So it's hard to explain, but it's so snappy. It's just a real joy to fly. I actually could use a little more yaw. Again, this is relatively, you know, I got to get it kind of tuned in for my liking. Yeah, a little more yaw. Oops. Always disarm, by the way. Don't screw the copter while it's on like I'm doing. And make sure you tape in that, yeah, I got a busted prop. Oh, no, I got a broken. That's what happens when you only have one thing holding on your motor right there, just so you know. Whoa! Okay, well, I got to put another thing on here, but a little more tuning, and but it's a winner. I tell you, it's a real blast to fly. And yeah, dang it, I don't know if the prop's messed up or just the motor's zip tie came off. But had a zip tie, I could fix it and keep flying. But I think y'all get the idea. I'm going to do a long demo flight. We're going to do some really crazy stuff. We got an idea to take and put another mini tricopter underneath it and fly and flip. If it'll lift it, I think it'll lift it, but it'll be some weight. We might share the battery just so, you know, to keep the weight reasonable. But I'm gonna get my son to help me do that, and we might try some more really stupid stuff. So we'll see. But it's a real simple build. The wiring is real easy, and I guess that storm's gonna go by. It's a real simple build. I like the speed controls from buddyrc, but you have to really take the gains down. So I think they were what I would call a really good speed controller, meaning that like come on, man. Oh, the Afros from hobbyking are real sensitive, real tight speed controls, and these seem to be similar to those speed controls, which is no big deal. You just bring the gains down lower to make it more manageable. If these speed controllers are the brother, the 30 amps, were on like a larger copter, it could probably stand to have higher gains and things like that. But mainly when you get that little shimmy and shake, that means that the gains are too high. And on a small, you know, where you have a real small amount of room between motors, it becomes way more exaggerated. So you have to bring the gains down. I had the gains all the way down to 20 and it flew fine. But when I went to the acro here, I knocked them back up to about 30, 35. So just because I want to make sure it didn't get floppy on me. So hope you guys like it. I've always wanted a small tricopter that had a ton of power. We actually clocked one of these. No, scratch that. We did the mini detail, we clocked it. But this thing seems as fast as the mini detail, if not faster, and we did that one at 50 miles an hour. My other prototype tricopter, I was running up and down the street and I could never get it to full throttle because it was just blazing going by, and you really can't see it once it gets about 100 feet away. At least my eyesight. I'm 49 years old. So so paint it bright and and have a good time, and pray that I don't get killed by the storm. So I'll talk to you guys later, and enjoy. Bye bye.
How's that for power?
That didn't work out.